go ahead. And first off, obviously, I just want to welcome everybody for taking the time to hang out with us this evening. Of course, as you can see on screen, I'm Jeff Crowder. I'm representing a men's retreat group called Souly Business. And the stated mission of Souly Business is to connect men in the marketplace with our Heavenly Father and with one another. We realize you could be doing other things this evening. We realize many of us are considerably burnt out on video teleconferencing. But at the same time, lots of us are tired of losing the opportunity to see each other, and in a lot of cases, even to lost the case this year to serve together. And so I want to say a special welcome to those of you who've been invited by a friend to join us this evening. Probably may not have any knowledge of this organization or what it's about. But what we're doing tonight doesn't require any previous knowledge of Souly Business of the past or what we do. But I do want to tell you just a little bit about the group Souly Business. We typically meet and come together 2 times a year in the months of April and November up at Doe River Gorge. And the goal is to get away from all the noise and distractions of the world and to listen to some great talks and give our Heavenly Father some time to speak to our souls as well. So both of our events, as you might imagine, this year did get canceled. I would say along with all the other Souly businesses across the U.S. and Canada and Costa Rica, everybody canceled out for the full year. But that did lead us to the opportunity of tonight to use this technology as a vehicle to hang out for a little while. So if you like tonight, there's a good chance that we'll be doing it again. And so hang with me a minute. We do have a next retreat scheduled at Doe River Gorge. It's at the last weekend in April of 2021, which happens to be the dates of the 23rd through the 25th. Certainly, only God knows if we'll be cleared to meet by then, but I think we're all very hopeful about that. So this evening is about offering a time for men to gather, for us to receive a personal message of encouragement and an opportunity to share what our life's been like during this year, if you want to. I want to make it clear there is no pressure. There's no set expectations to this time, and certainly there's no hidden agenda. So you can go at your own comfort level and know that you're not going to be pressed into anything. So let me kind of close my time with telling you a little bit of what to expect this evening as far as our agenda goes. In just a moment, Bill Stark, our Zoom moderator, is going to break us into rooms where we can introduce ourselves and visit for just a couple of minutes. After that, he'll bring us back, and our friend Michael Cody is going to lead us in a worship song. And when Michael is done, Tom Oler is going to share his personal story in relation to the 23rd Psalm. And he did say that he would suggest, if you get the opportunity, if you have a Bible nearby, or the app on your phone, the Bible app, you might find yourself jumping to the 23rd Psalm. Might help as he does his talk. But when Tom's done, we're going to go back into the same rooms just to take some time to talk a little bit about his talk, what it means to you. There'll be about 30 minutes of time for you to share. So, and then at the end, you will have the option to hang on a little bit longer for probably 15 minutes or so, as Bill would put you in a variety of rooms. And once again, you could just hang out. You could just visit. You could make fun of each other some more, which we all enjoy. So that's kind of a quick span over the time frame. I will tell you, this is the plan. and we do pray it all goes well. This is our first run at a large group Zoom meeting. And here we have Bill Stark, as he talked about. He's in Atlanta. And then our speaker, Tom, he's joining us from Dallas this evening. So we just hope and pray all goes well. And we'll trust it in the Lord. So again, thanks for joining us. I bet the time will go fast. And so now I'm going to turn, Bill, things back over to you. Thanks.
Excellent. It's great to see all of you. I just got a text from Jerry Hedrick saying he was having some audio problems. Just wave at me if your audio is okay, if you can hear us okay. Okay, good deal. Well, great. Guys, what we're going to do tonight, just for a few minutes, for about 10 minutes, is just give you a chance to get to know each other. If you don't know each other, introduce yourselves, name, what you do in the marketplace, and just get a chance to catch up. And you may even, if you have a moment, you can ask, how's your faith life these days? How's your family life? And how's work going? We just want to have a little bit of social time, let you guys get to know each other, for those of you that don't. So I'm going to hit a button on my computer here in just a moment, and it's going to ask you to go into rooms, breakout rooms, and their little signs are going to come up on your computer screen that's going to say, do you want to join this room, room 2, room 3? And you just say yes, and that's going to put you in a room, and then in 10 minutes, I'll bring you all back. So here we go.
Well, Jeff Crowder asked me to drop in and do this. And he asked if I could come up with anything that was related to the 23rd Psalm. So this is a song by Matt Redman called You Never Let Go, which has some resonance with the psalm. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, your perfect love is casting out fear. And even when I'm caught in the middle of the storms of this life, I won't turn back, I know you are near. And for my God is with me, and if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Oh no, you never let go through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go in every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. I can see a light that is coming for the heart that holds on. A glorious light beyond all compare. And there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, we'll live to know you here on this earth. And I will fear no evil, for my God is with me. And if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Oh no, you never let go through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go in every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. And I can see the light that is coming for the heart that holds on. And there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, still I will praise you, still I will praise you.
Wow. Awesome.
Good job.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, wow. Steve, why song? I'm going to unmute you now, and you can hit the unmute button on your computer if you would, and introduce Tom to us.
Okay, I guess you can hear me now.
Sure can.
Well, before I introduce our speaker tonight, I wanted to mention something about the facility that we've used since the beginning of East Tennessee Souly Business Weekend. Doe River Gorge has been very gracious this year in allowing us to cancel 2 events due to COVID and without any penalties. Just wanted to mention they're having a virtual banquet next Tuesday night at 7 and an online auction starting today. So if anyone's interested in these online events, you can go to doeriver.com. Now I'm very honored to introduce our speaker for the evening. I've known Tom Euler for over 30 years. He has been such a blessing and inspiration to me during this time. Tom has a unique ability to explain what God has given us in the Bible in a clear and simplified form for me to understand. We share several things in common, such as we've been to Israel several times together and have walked where many of the Bible stories took place. In one life challenge we share, we both have lost an adult son and have been able to trust God through this experience. After living in East Tennessee for over 30 years, Tom currently resides in Dallas, Texas, with 2 of his children where they live and work, plus there are grandkids to enjoy. Tom has been involved with Grace Fellowship Church in Johnson City for 38 years and is now pastor emeritus, plus other roles he does in the Dallas area. I am so looking forward to hearing from Tom and what he has to say to us tonight. So without further ado, here is my friend Tom Euler.
Okay, Tom, I think you can unmute now. Let's see. Still can't hear you, Tom. No. There you go. You had it. There you go.
Okay. Gosh, I was 5 minutes into my message and I didn't know I wasn't. Thank you, Steve. You are a good friend to me, and so are others of you in the room tonight. So it's an honor to be with all of you. A lawyer was questioning a farmer about a highway accident that had taken place. And the lawyer said, "Tell me what happened right after the accident when you reportedly said, 'I feel fine.'" Well, my cow and me and Bessie were driving down the road, and the lawyer interrupted. He said, "Answer my question. Didn't you say you felt fine immediately after the accident?" The judge instructed the farmer to answer the question. So the farmer began again. He said, "Well, me and my cow Bessie, we were driving down the road." Lawyer interrupts again, insisting that the witness answer his question. So the judge looked at the lawyer and he looked at the farmer, and he finally said, "Let's just let him tell his story." So the farmer began again. "Me and my cow Bessie were driving down the road. And when we turned across the median, this big truck broadsided us. And I went out of the truck one way and Bessie went out the other way. I regained consciousness just as the highway patrol officer arrived. He went over and looked at poor Bessie lying there on the road. And then he came over to me and told me that she was badly injured and was likely not going to make it. Then he went back to Bessie, pulled out his revolver, and mercifully took her life. Then he said he came back to me and he asked me, "How did I feel?" And I said, "I feel fine." Are you guys muted and you couldn't hear that, or is that not good? Does anybody like that little story?
Yes, but we're muted, so we can't. You don't hear us
Okay.
laughing. But
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I was looking for some kind of smiles or something. So, help me out. I've never done this before. There's one thing that causes us to stall out, I think, to kind of run out of gas spiritually, emotionally, relationally, even at times physically, and that is hiding the truth from ourselves and from others. I think there are too many I feel fines flying around in our culture and in our relationships and in our churches. I think perhaps because we assume if we answer honestly, somebody might shoot us in a metaphorical kind of way. So we say, I feel fine. I think Souly Business exists in part to help men answer that question a little more honestly. I'm not sure why it's so difficult for us to do. Shame is probably the top culprit, in my opinion, but I have found, and beginning to know more in my life, that Jesus knows already, and he understands. For example, in Matthew chapter 9 and verse 36, there's a very poignant moment in the life of Jesus. It's kind of breathtaking when you take your time through it. But it says basically that Jesus, seeing the people, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed and dispirited like sheep without a shepherd. So he sees the people and he has this emotional reaction, compassion. It's a deep feeling that comes from deep within the soul. And it's based, in this case, on his intuitive insight into the nature of men. But why did he have compassion? Because they were distressed. The word means harassed, and dispirited, which means to be defeated or thrown down without the ability to get up. But he names it for what it is: distressed and harassed. And the only emotion he has is compassion. There's no shooting, if you get my initial story. I mean, is that relevant or what? Distress and defeat. Distress and defeat. Take a poll. Where is it? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. What's the real problem though? Why so prevalent? Is it the environment? Is it current events? Is life just hard? I don't think so. The text answers the question. They were in distress and defeated like sheep without a shepherd. Like sheep without a shepherd. Shepherdless sheep and sheep with a shepherd are totally different. Sheep without a shepherd and sheep with a shepherd are totally different. And it is the shepherd that makes all of the difference. The reason for their own emotional response and distress was that they were acting like sheep without a shepherd. I think believers can go to this and see themselves too, because we can have the shepherd, but we can act as if we don't have a shepherd and have some of the same problems. Reminds me of two words that someone said to me some years ago with great compassion. And he said, Tom, you are frantic and desperate inside. And after a knowing pause, I said, tell me something I don't know. I've never been anything else. It was in my early 50s. I've never been anything else. I still am at times frantic and desperate. Sometimes I don't even know what about, but boy, I can feel it. I can feel it. One of the most profound lessons I've ever learned in life is that only when my desperation level exceeds my embarrassment level do I become a candidate for the grace of God. That's worth getting down if you've never heard it or may need to reflect on it. Until my desperation level exceeds my embarrassment level, do I become a candidate for the grace of God. And this, I believe, is one of the underlying principles of the most influential and transformational words ever penned in the history of the world. I think a case can be made for that. It's 3,000 years old, written by a man who has learned from his own desperation how to experience life in profound, positive, and personal ways. David begins Psalm 23 with this astounding, and when you think about it, audacious and yet authentic line. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I shall not want. That is such a strong conviction that it could never have been manufactured or made up. This is David's life journey, and we're getting a picture of it later on in his life as he has matured. The key to it is something David knew quite well and without embarrassment. In his heart, in his nature, in his relationships, he knew he was like a sheep. And if anybody knew what sheep were like, it's David. He was a shepherd. You know, a sheep represents everything proud and proper humanity despises. Sheep are defenseless, for example. They have no sharp teeth or strong jaws. They have no claws. They cannot run, fly, or burrow into the ground. They are not physically strong enough to get themselves out of harm's way. They are completely vulnerable when they're left to themselves. They're unable to find their own food and water. And once they wander away from it, they can't find their own way back to it. They cannot live unattended. Not only are they defenseless and dependent, they are also dumb, stupid. Their brains are quite small. They wander, they follow each other without a clue to where they are or where they're going. They can be eating pleasantly in a pasture, and if one of the sheep gets distracted and takes off, the rest usually follow, oblivious to how to get back to their own food source. They simply don't know what is good for them or where to find it, even if they did. And once they found it, they can forget where they found it. Besides being defenseless, dependent, and dumb, they are also dirty. They are filthy and stinky. They are altogether helpless. Have you ever been in a group setting where you've been asked to identify what animal you would most to be like or identified with in some way? I'll bet my life that never in any of those social discussion gatherings that has anyone ever said, yes, I'd like to be a sheep. No, that's not going to happen. Nations and athletic teams choose animals to represent them. An eagle, a bear, a dolphin, a panther, a falcon, a wildcat. But never, never, ever have I heard of a nation or a team identify themselves with a sheep. I've wondered if sheep knew they were sheep and were so terribly vulnerable, so drastically in need of most everything being provided for them and protected from them, would they be embarrassed? Or would they even know? Would they hold themselves in contempt and just look at me? Look, oh, I am just such a pitiful animal. David knew he was as vulnerable as a sheep, but he did not hold himself in contempt or despise himself. Why? The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. He's a sheep. You can't have a shepherd unless you're a sheep. But he's a sheep with a shepherd. Indeed, with the Lord as his shepherd. The one who makes me, he says, lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. I am particularly fond of that little line. And he guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Remember, a sheep without a shepherd is totally different than a sheep with a shepherd. And David here is unapologetically a sheep, but one with a shepherd. And not just any shepherd. He's the Lord God, the God of all eternity, the God of Moses at the burning bush. I am that I am. The good shepherd, Jesus identified himself. But that pathway with that shepherd is not always pleasurable, uneventful, kind of a walk in the park and easy way. Just the opposite at times. In verse 4, David gets real honest. The tone and intensity becomes ominous. Verse 4 begins, even though he does all those things for me, even though I walk through the valley of deep darkness. The common translation of that one word in Hebrew is the shadow of death, the valley of the shadow of death. The term literally should be translated deep darkness, and it will sometimes be noted in any translations of the Old Testament. The valley of deep darkness. It's a dreary word, a word used elsewhere in the Bible to describe impenetrable darkness that is associated with anxiety and unfocused dread. I can resonate with that last one. Unfocused dread. It was a real place. In fact, Steve can testify to that. We've walked this Wadi Kelt in Israel several times. A wadi is a deep valley of rock created by thousands of years of rain and runoff. Likely the one that David is referring to here was the road that David frequented as the only way to go from Jerusalem to Jericho with his sheep from Bethlehem, which was near Jerusalem. Jesus and Joseph and Mary, when Mary was with child, would have taken this road through this valley as they journeyed to Bethlehem from Nazareth. It was the background of the story of the Good Samaritan who cared for the man who was left for dead after he was beaten and robbed by some of the vicious criminals who lurked and lingered around the rocky curve and narrow road. It's a well-known valley. It itself is about 5 miles long, the valley part of it, yet no more than 12 feet wide at its base. It is so narrow, one writer notes, that in places sheep can hardly turn around to avoid danger. Now that'll get your attention. One experienced scholar observes travelers march slowly and silently to avoid being seen and heard by the bandits. This fear of death is constantly on their minds. They tremble, they expect trouble or death at any time when they are passing through. It is a foreboding, threatening, frightening, intimidating path. So David here is not referring to a geographical place. He's helping understand it. He's referring to all the possible dark and bitter experiences, one of which is death, that goes with being a human being. It's an ominous, but a good dose of reality. I like to put it this way. Life inevitably includes unavoidable and intimidating circumstances. Life inevitably includes unavoidable and intimidating circumstances. So how does David prepare us for them? Well, by example, mainly, and masterfully by expression. Even though I walk through the valley of deep darkness, even though, I love that. Nuanced is especially when the inevitable comes. No matter what, regardless of the worst circumstances of life, the most fearful of all being the reality of death. Even though, great title for a book, by the way. I think I could write one, and I think most of you could too, couldn't you? You've been there. Even though. Who has not had some even though moments or seasons of life or even stages of life? I continue to be surprised by the different nature of the stages of life. And they don't get easier. I hate to say that to some of you who are a bit younger, but it's true. You've had your own. But notice David's perspective. He says, even though I walk through, he avoids what I call the deadliness of anticipatory anxiety. Anticipatory anxiety is deadly to the human soul. And even before he begins, he declares that he walks through the valley, not in it, but through it. Going through signals a temporary condition or state or path. As I heard recently, we do not lose hope as much as we lose perspective. Think about that for a while. We don't lose hope so much as we lose perspective. Valleys don't go on forever. There are no cul-de-sacs on God's map. It is a section of the path that cannot be avoided nor bypassed, or is there an alternative route and no magical escape. There is only way forward is through. It's really the only choice. But here's the great thing about these seasons or stages in our journey. It's the words of Richard Foster. God becomes a reality when he becomes a necessity. God becomes a reality when he becomes a necessity. And you and I both work real hard and real frantically to try to stay in the place where I really don't need God. But when you're in the valley of darkness and you're a sheep, God is necessary. God becomes a reality when he becomes a necessity. Pay attention to that. It fits the flow of the passage. In verses 1-3, David talks about the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me, he leads me, he restores me, he guides me. The reference is always in relationship to God, the third person, he. But in verses 4 and 5, the even though transition. I walk through the valley of the shadow of death or deep darkness. I fear no evil, for what? You are with me. It's no longer he. He's not talking about God now, not in the valley of deep darkness. You are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I see my shepherd. But David is a sheep, but he is a sheep with a shepherd, and that makes all of the difference, even though, no matter what. He's no longer talking about the shepherd. We do really good at that, usually. Doesn't change our lives that much. But he's talking to the shepherd, you and me, you and me, you and me. It's the second person. And what a person the Lord is. David has learned to trust the Lord. He's not focusing on what can go wrong, what might happen to him, even if he's in the deep darkness. So as he anticipates what comes, it's like the shepherd appears in his mind on the stage, and David looks into his strong, caring, compassionate, faithful, loving, good eyes and says stunningly, you are with me. and your rod and your staff, they comfort me. We're going to come back to verse 5 in our conclusion. Bill's going to take it from here to help us get into discussion in our groups.
Oh, thank you, Tom. I'm going to let me find Jerry Hedrick. Jerry, you can go ahead and unmute if you would, please, sir.
Are we good? Tom, thank you very much for taking the time to share that message with us. I really enjoy that psalm, so, and I appreciate you very much, gentlemen. At this time, we'd like to take just a few minutes and spend some time quietly considering the message that we just heard from Tom and the words that he spoke to us, thinking about how that would apply to our life and how it would how we could use that to promote a closer relationship with Christ and get to know our own shepherd even better. And then after a few minutes of quiet time, we will go back to Bill and he'll take us to our group discussions. But let's take just a moment and with your eyes closed, possibly some time in prayer and contemplation. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for that quiet time. Bill, I'll hand it back over to Bill and he'll split us up into our rooms for group discussion.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you for leading us in that quiet moment where we can sort of quiet our spirits and hear from God, related to what Tom shared. So what I'm going to do now is put you back in your rooms. I may have to juggle a few of you around. There's one room that just has a couple people in it, and there are a couple that have a few more. So a little thing will pop up on your screen and ask you to go ahead and move into the room. Just say yes. And then we're going to give you 30 minutes. It's 7:05 right now. We're going to give you 30 minutes. So take your time. I'm going to actually type up some questions as well, and those will show up in your room. Things maybe you might want to talk about, although you don't have to use these questions, but we just want you to give you time to kind of unpack and share from your heart what you felt like maybe God was prompting you toward in Tom's talk. So here we go. Hey guys, welcome back. Let's see here. Yeah, welcome back, guys. I hope that was enjoyable. That was about 30 minutes. Hopefully everybody got a chance to share a bit and talk about this, what God may have laid on your heart about Psalm 23. And thank you, Tom, again. So what we're going to do now, guys, is just like we do at a Souly Business Weekend, we want to give whoever feels led to share something that is on your heart, maybe something you heard that really went deep into your heart. We want to give you a chance to share and just tell others what you're experiencing. And when we do this, guys, we want to do it in what we call first person. First person is I feel like, I heard, I believe, I desire, I want, as opposed to third person, which is, you guys need to, we need to, y'all need to do this, we need to do that. It's first person. So really would appreciate your just thinking about your comments from your perspective. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to unmute you and allow you to just share. If we're try to keep it short, maybe a minute or two, we'll get a few of you guys in here. And so if you want to share, we'd love for you to do it. And if you want to, just wave your hand like this right now. If you'll wave your hand, I will unmute you and let you share. And come on, guys, where is the? I thought we'd have a waving hand. Who wants to wave their hand and share? You don't have to share. That's rule number one. Greg. All right, brother Greg. Good to see you. There you are, man.
Hey, sorry. I was just telling you guys what I got out of Tom's message, and the psalm is kind of what I've been going through this year, and actually the last few years. Really, have I attended Grace, where Tom was a pastor for 19 years, and kind of got to the beginning of this year, and it was at the end of semester of going to the end of the semester of Vertical, which is a 5th and 6th grade ministry. And I had 6th graders a year, and I've done that for like 9 years. And I just got over the last few years, I just kind of got in a rut, I guess. And it was at the end, and so I backed out of Vertical, and I prayed hard about it, and God wasn't putting anything in my way to not do that. And but then I also, Grace shut down during the COVID thing, and there was another little church. I moved from Johnson City to closer to Greenville. And so I changed churches, and so it's just been a renewal. I was in, like I said, kind of got me out of this rut. I was kind of in a spiritual rut. Just something different message, different. I mean, it's still very godly. Pastor teaches out of the Bible chronologically, so it's everything's coming right out of the Bible, and and it's joined the worship team, and I'm beginning a men's ministry, so it's all just kind of, God's just kind of opened up some doors, and kind of, like I said, kind of give me a new little spiritual renewal. My biggest regret of the year is I miss Souly business. It's just because I draw. Tim asked about if where we draw our strength, and a lot of times I draw my strength of seeing God work, and I'm seeing God work at church I'm going to now. But I always miss seeing that weekend, just watching God just work in men's lives. And so
yeah. Wow, thank you, Greg. Thank you for sharing. That's a beautiful story, and it's right in alignment with Psalm 23, those dark times that we go through, times of darkness, and God is restoring that for you with your new friendships and church relationships and things. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing. It's good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you.
Yeah. All right. Would anybody else like to just make a comment or anything you felt like? Roy. Okay, go ahead and unmute there, Roy.
I heard in the small group some guys talking about some business down and job loss and things like that, but I heard a lot of faith and being even some excitement about what God's going to do and come from this. And as I said, one of them, I'm looking forward to hearing their testimony at Souly in a few years, how God has helped them vanquish the foe and coming through this. And one story has kind of been that before, and it's going to happen again. I just know that it will be that way. But there's blessings coming from this, and even during the time of hardship and sorrow.
Well, yeah, thank you, Roy. That reminds me of what Tom shared. We don't lose hope as much as we lose perspective, and good things will come to pass. Thank you. I appreciate that, Roy. I'm going to have to move my screen around, see if anybody else. All right. Anybody else want to? Dale, is that you? Did you say something? Dale? No? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Well, Jeff, say what we're going to do right now. We're going to ask Tom to come back with us and just kind of sort of put a closing exclamation mark on the message. So, Tom, you can go ahead and unmute and wrap us up.
Okay. I think that in Psalm 23, there's riches in every word and every verse from the beginning and to the end. But structurally, I think the high point is verses 4 and 5. And we've sort of looked at verse 4 earlier, and I'd like to take a look at what verse 5 has to say. We've kind of brushed through some of the great qualities of the great shepherd, the good shepherd. But ultimately, what matters most is not his abilities and his strengths, but what's in his heart. And what I sense, I don't know if I'm right, but I think David begins to feel as he's rehearsing these great things that he knows about the shepherd, and that he can walk through all these valleys of deep darkness and know his strength and his presence. There's something that he may have been asking himself. And it's not just what God does for him and what he's able to do, but I think there's a question there that most of us are asking too. And that is, does he really care for me? Do I really matter to him? I hear it in David's voice. You, me, you, me. How often in the deep darkness, in spite of knowing that he's adequate and well equipped, we have our moments and we're sometimes just wanting to cry out, do you want me? Am I important to you? Do you really care? I know you're omnipotent and all powerful. You can do all those things. But I'm just one sheep. I'm just one sheep. Does he care for me? Does he love me? I had someone tell me some years ago that, Tom, you've been an asset all of your life, because they know my early history and all the way to the current. And I was startled to hear that. And they asked me, has anybody ever wanted you? Not just for what you could do for them, but have they just wanted you? Tears started coming out my eyes. And I said, I don't really know. I don't really know. I tend to think a lot of us have been, we learn early on to be an asset, because that's really the only way we can get somebody to love us and be a part of our lives. So, Lord, do you love me? Do you really want to be with me? Do you like me? Right now, right here, wherever I'm at. Now, the context is still the same, going through the deep, dark valley. And then he says in verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. My cup overflows. He now envisions a unique experience of hospitality in the midst of conflict and crises. In the presence of my enemies, you prepare a table before me. What is going on here? This is beginning to get very personal. And you prepare a table before me, and I'm seated at your table, Lord. And God's kind of saying to his enemies, you mess with him, you mess with me. He's mine. He's at my table. And you mess with him, you're going to mess with me. And to my guests, the father says, the owner says, that I love you and I need you and I want you in my life. And I just messed up my pages. I don't know where it went. Knew that would happen somewhere along the line. To his guest, he says, "You matter to me. You really do." The culture of the day, no one would imagine that the father or the master of the home would be involved in preparing and serving food and drinks to the guests in the home. Would never happen. The master provided it, paid for it, but he didn't prepare it. He didn't serve it. He didn't bring it to the table. The servants did that. But in David's mind, he's envisioning the goodness of his shepherd as his host, who goes to extreme and extravagant heights to send an unforgettable, breathtaking message to him. You anoint my head with oil. You do it. Anointing the head was a token of esteem in ancient times. Love was in full view because of the costliness of the oil, the myrrh, the aloes, other exotic fragrances mixed in precise measure, permanently sealed in alabaster vases. At the appropriate time, a servant would come and break the bottle at its neck and pour it lavishly over the guests, that perfumed oil round down their head and their garment, and it would leave this lingering fragrance. But David doesn't see it as a servant. Speaking to the Lord, David says, "You anoint my head. You treat me in an exotic, special, personal way." It's called the cup of joy in Psalm 45 and verse 7. Imagine the Father, the owner. For you, he comes to you at the table, to your head, and he anoints you with that oil. In the midst of the deep darkness, the weariness of life, and he refreshes you. But then next, after a lengthy pause, comes the most amazing sight of all. And David just expresses it in the shortest possible way. I love this. My cup overflows. My cup overflows. Not with oil, but with wine. Also served at the table by whom? Well, the servants in reality, but David envisioned it that it's the Lord who is David's shepherd, who enables him to make that strong conviction in verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. For David, this is an experience, exceptionally personal moment. And I think it's the pinnacle of the psalm, as David visions, it's just him and his shepherd, the Lord, together at that table. I think this is the pinnacle of the psalm. My cup overflows. You get this, and it'll take your breath away, I would hope. Hosts in the ancient Near East used the cup to send messages to guests. It's not unlike a restaurant, Tom. As long as the cup was made full, the guest knew that he was welcome. Stay as long as you want. But when the cup began to sit empty, the host was hinting that the hour was late. You stop refilling your drinks at your tables, Tom. Probably people start going, well, I guess it's time to go. You weren't trying to send that message. But this was a gracious way in the ancient Near East to tell the people, hey, Gertrude, it's probably time for us to go. There's nothing more to drink, and I don't think there's any more coming. But when it comes to David at the table, it breaks all the rules. He keeps looking down at his cup, and it's not empty. It's not half full. Hasn't been the whole night. It's filled to overflowing. It just keeps coming without end. The table is dripping wet where David is sitting because his cup is overflowing. He personally, the host, comes to David's part of the table. Even as others are leaving, he is filling David's cup to overflowing, always overflowing, always overflowing. And the message to David is, and God's message to us is, I never want you to leave. I want you. You belong at my table. I'm not just your host or your servant. I am your father. I care for you like a shepherd cares for his sheep. This is your table too. You belong here. You need never go anywhere else for what you can get from me, which is a full cup in your heart in life. This is deeply moving and profoundly to me. And the last few years have been a lot of transition in my life. And Psalm 23, I'm not talking about that by accident because I've been in it for 3 or 4 years now as kind of my personal guide. And I can just see David at the table looking up at the owner's eyes. And he's looking right into my eyes and he's saying, Tom, I really love you. I want you to stay. I don't want you to ever feel like you have to go anywhere else. Remember the first verse. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He can provide and gives me everything that I really need. In the presence of my enemies, going through the dark valleys, he says, I fear no evil because I have this great loving God who wants me. Just me, little old Tom, little old Tommy Euler. I can't believe it. As John in the New Testament says, perfect love casts out fear. And this is perfect love. And I've known it nowhere else. And I crave it and I get glimpses of it from time to time. Perfect love casts out fear. And in the eyes of the shepherd, David knows perfect love. No need for any more I feel fines. I don't have to feel fine to know my cup is full. I'm just there. And that's all that God wants. Mac Lucado asks, how wet? Have you noticed how wet your table is? Have you noticed how wet your table is? God wants you to stay. You belong. Don't ever leave. There's no need to. There's nothing better for you than your relationship with your shepherd. My cup overflows. Overflows. Notice how wet your table is. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Jeff, I'll let you.
Well, just wanted to say, Tom, thank you so much. We so much appreciate it. Understand that you personally are going through plenty, and for you to share these verses with us means even more. And as I look across the group that we've got remaining, I just want to thank you for joining, being a part. It's our desire to fill your cup, to provide a place where the Lord can fill your cup up. And it's been a tough year for many. And just hope this has been some encouragement. And I'll say no more other than thank you very much. And I'll let Bill explain the remaining minutes that we have left.
Thank you, Jeff. Tom, thank you again. Blessings to you, and appreciate your preparing and sharing that with us. It really meant a lot, and this is very timely for so many of us. Guys, what we're going to do, we had one of these Zoom gatherings in Atlanta recently, and one thing I noticed at the end of the gathering was that the guys wanted to just chat for a few minutes. They just wanted to hang out and say hello. And so we're going to do that. I'm actually going to leave this line open. I've got to step away right now, but if you need to go, you can just hit end and, turn off your computer or whatever. But if you'd like to stay and just chit chat for a while and catch up and say hello, please do that. I'll leave the line open for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever. Y'all can say hello to each other or whatever you'd like to do. Part of Souly Business, of course, is our unscripted time. That's the time when we get to just hang out and just be together and grow in friendship with each other. And we're going to do that right now. I'll go ahead and unmute you guys. I want to tell you I love you on behalf of Souly Business here in Georgia. We love you, man, and we pray for you. And it's so good to see all your faces, Jim, Tim, Jerry, everybody, Mark. So you guys have a great Christmas, and look forward to seeing y'all again soon. I went ahead and unmuted everybody, so y'all should be able to unmute your lines right now if you want to, and you should be free to do that. Again, if you need to drop off, feel free to drop off. It's really great to see you.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Good to see
Thanks,
you.
Bill, for facilitating this evening.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Tom, it was nice to meet you. I worked with Rich over at Saratoga for years while he was there.
Tom, you're still muted.
Yeah, I see a number of people still muted in case they want to talk.
There we go. I had to get on my phone, guys, because my computer went south. But Tom, thank you. I appreciate you so much, and Jeff and Jerry and all you guys that's kind of put this together tonight. It's been a blessing to actually, get to see our men's group and some new folks as well, and be a part of it, even though it's virtually. It's still, renewing to our hearts and minds. And just want to thank you in advance for that. Tom, what a great message.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It was wonderful. Thanks, guys, for putting this on, and Will for leading our room. Love you guys. Appreciate you.
Yeah, enjoyed it, gentlemen.
Yeah, I just want to say a personal shout out to Cody Jones. I'm so glad to see that you joined us, that you hung with us. Of course, again, down in Atlanta, and we're glad you decided to make the effort to join us, and hope to see some more of you in the future.
Jeff, that's my favorite son there.
You want him at your table, huh, Bill?
Do I?
You want him at your table, right?
Yeah.
Who's his
Cody,
favorite
you're
dad?
muted. Cody, you're muted.
Hey, Bill, who's his favorite dad?
My favorite dad is Hank Carr.
No, Cody's favorite dad.
He's not here with the team. I don't think Hank's here. I think he got off, so he can't. I'm seeing the one too. I've always looked at him as a father figure.
I went to the Souly it's probably like 4 years ago in Atlanta, and haven't been involved since. But I think next time around, I want to get involved. So hopefully I'll get to see you guys more.
Good deal.
Great to see you, Cody.
Awesome.
It was a pleasure to have you in our room, Cody.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Cody, remember, as much as we want to see you in Tennessee, that Georgia group that you were a part of, it's running a lot of retreats, and they're having these events as well. So, all of that's open to all of us, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I will. If Bill could.
You
muted yourself somehow. Muted yourself, Cody.
Working this on the phone is a little difficult for me. I was gonna say I'll check that out online and see what the next event for the Atlanta chapter is.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks again.
Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm going to jump off. Love you guys.
So
thank you, Tom.
See you in the morning, Steve.
Yeah, see you in the morning. All right, love you guys.
Great event.
Need to run. Bill Jones, it was good seeing you, Paul. It was good seeing you.
You, Sam.
Yeah. So you guys take care.
See you guys. Love you guys.
We'll talk to you soon.
Great to see you guys.
Love y'all.
See you, Tom.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yes.
Take care,
See you guys.
Bill, Jeff, thanks for putting this on. Tom, it was great to hear you again, and God bless you down there in Texas.
Good place to be.
Take care.
Yeah, it was great to hear you again, Tom.